And we're on. Dr. Nikki Starr, thanks for being on Fitness and Consciousness.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me here with you today.
Yeah, it's really cool to have you here. So you went to uh, medical school, and then now you're more into a different kind of healing. And can you just tell us like what your background is through that, and why you decided to change your path? Or
Sure. So I did go to medical school. I went to NYU Medical School, which actually yesterday I just found out that they are now awarding all current and future students free medical school, where I paid $55,000 a year
wow,
to invest in this education that now is free.
wow,
So that's just a little side note that I'm still
mm,
paying that back. So yeah, I went through medical school and I was always drawn to healing and helping people. And growing up in New York City, that's like the obvious path, yeah, everything is Western medicine, everything is modern medicine. And I didn't really know of anything else. So of course, that's just the natural path I took. And it wasn't until I started traveling when I was in medical school. It was kind of like my hobby. I was a cocktail waitress in New York City. And so I used the money I made to travel. And
mm,
it was really like medicine for me, actually, because with all the hours and the studies, and I was seeing the world, expanding my mind. And with that, also seeing how other cultures live and heal and work with medicine and such. And to see that modern medicine, Western medicine, is very young. It's a very young medicine with prescription medications, et cetera. It's only about 100 and something years old.
yeah.
So it's really interesting how so much of the world puts so much of their faith and trust in a system that's so young. And for me, I started seeing, well, wait, if some of these things are lasting the test of time, have been around for thousands of years, passed on through generations, I just started questioning things a little bit. And then with my travels, I started feeling different, like feeling this sense of oneness and feeling happy to be traveling and seeing nature and connecting with nature and feeling oneness and what that even means. And so I was having like a spiritual awakening. And then that started, again, causing me to question everything of like, am I really here to be a medical doctor? Is it to help people in general to live like happy lives too? And then when I would go back, I would have like reverse culture shock all the time. And I would be seeing patients and I wouldn't necessarily feel like I was healing anyone. It was more of like, okay, your acute symptoms are gone. And now you have all these other problems. So here's all these prescription medications and now just go home. And it was just kind of, it didn't feel right inside. And I actually had planned to be a dermatologist. So I was like, oh, well, I'm not doing internal medicine anyway. So it doesn't really matter if, this is not my specialty, this general medicine. But then I had this really, what seemed like this big upset. It was really a big gift. And the upset was that I didn't match in a dermatology program, but it was this really strange thing where it's a match program where every person who interviews ranks where they interview, and every school that interviews ranks all the people who interview. And so then you get matched up. So every interviewee doesn't have a participant, but every school has a spot. And one of the places I interviewed at had an open spot, which is like so strange because I ranked them. And technically, based on how it works, they ranked me, but it didn't match. Like they had an open spot. And so it was like, oh my God, how did this happen? And everyone did tell me, like, you really need to take time off and do more research. And I was like, no, I want to try. I just want to do it and see if I get it. But really, it was a gift because if I would have matched, I probably would have just stayed on the path. But because I didn't match, I did a year of my internal medicine residency. And after that, I was like, you know what, let me just travel. And then I'll come back and do the research and apply again to dermatology. But then I never did that because life happened and I found myself in a yoga teacher training. And then from there, I came back to New York and I was like, well, maybe I'm going to do more of like anti-aging and consciousness movement with like healing with yoga and meditation. And I was even considering cosmetic medicine at that time, like anti-aging. And then even that was like, what am I saying? Like, no, it's about like finding the inner beauty. And then yoga really took me on a journey. And then I started traveling more, but with a different purpose. Now it was for the purpose of healing. So because my consciousness was awakening, I was like, okay, well, now I'm going on my healing journey. And then with that, I worked with different medicine men and women around the planet. And I started discovering more about my own healing abilities with my hands and energy and all of this stuff that was really foreign in New York City. Like, people don't talk about that stuff. Even now, it's a little bit weird, like talking about energy healing and stuff. So then I started discovering that my grandmother, the line of my grandmother, my mother's mother in Colombia, we all have healing abilities, and we come from this tribe and not that far off. Like, my grandmother's grandmother was the one who chose to leave and live in a town, like no longer live in nature. And it wasn't like, it was because of me asking, like, and then we discover like my grandmother's mother, she was a midwife and a healer, and she worked with plants and herbs and such. And so seeing that this was a part of our family lineage, and this made sense as to why I was drawn to medicine, why I'm naturally drawn to working with people, why people just naturally are drawn to me as well, to like share things with me. And that's how coaching started. Like, people just saw my journey and they were like, what are you doing? Like, can you help me? You know, I didn't go and get like coaching certified or something. It was just more of like people seeing I was changing my life, and then I can help guide them and to do the same thing. And so now I don't do any Western medicine. You know, I invested all that time, all that money. And for me, it was more of, okay, it has its purpose in the emergency medicine setting, is what I feel. It's my opinion. But for me, true healing and health and happiness comes with everyday lifestyle. And that's what I teach and share about.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And you were talking, you mentioned the money part of it a few times. So you're paying $55,000 a year to go to this school, but you know that when you get out, you're going to be making 10 times that. So it's cool. This is a very smart investment. And then you're going into yoga teacher training, which is like, yeah, I'm going to pay $2,000 for this, and man, it's going to take me 4 years to make $2,000. I know some yoga teachers, and they're not all raking in the money. You know, it can be difficult. I know some of them can make money, but when you're going from studio to studio and you're spread kind of thin, and it can be difficult to make money just as a yoga teacher. But you're looking at it as like what's really going to work, like what's your main goal. And it sounds like you're really successful now and have a lot of clients and are in demand, which is great. But was there a time when it was like you have like this pot of gold, all you have to do is like keep going this way to the traditional medical school or traditional medical path, and there's this, you know, you'll be having, you know, a lot of money, and when you go into this other thing, you were also talking about, you got into Reiki, and then you changed that, which I would wanted to get more into that too. But are you looking at it as like, did the money thing kind of like throw you off at first, or was it?
So yeah, this is a great question, because this is applicable to everyone, right? Like, in life, there's the path that can make us the money, and then there's the path that's in alignment with our heart, and then there's the one that's both, right? And I always believe that like both are possible. We don't have to sacrifice. Yeah. Do maybe in the beginning. So for me, let's say, perfect example, like, you know, in the first years I had some respite because you have a little bit of time to pay things back. But absolutely, like, there were times I was like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills this month? But I didn't care. Like, I was like, there's no way I can continue on a path that's not in alignment with what I believe is my mission on the planet. Because with having a spiritual awakening, you then realize the matrix, and you realize what's happening on the planet, and you realize the systems. There is no way that I can give my energy to this Western medical system that is also harming people with a lot of the prescription medications that are handed out so freely. And, you know, think of like the pain medication, like people are addicts now because of pain medicine. And, you know, and there's so many other ways for pain management, like energy healing. So I just was like, there's no way that I could give my time, my energy, my sweat, my tears, all of it to this system that I see the flaws, right? And some people think, well, you can change it, etc. But also really with energy healing, all these things, like I personally don't take any prescription medications. And even if I have something, I won't take them. I opt for herbs. I opt for doing certain type of fasting, etc. So how could I possibly be a part of a system I don't believe in? So for me, my values are higher on the end of like living in alignment with my heart and my belief system versus like money, right? Because money is an energy this is something I've also had to learn over the years. It was like the moment I trusted I was fully supported, I always really was fully supported. You know, I never drew negative on my bank account. You know, did I have to rack up credit card debt and things like that? Sure, of course. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs are even doing, right? Like people who didn't go to school and have all this debt. But a lot of times you take that risk on what you believe in and what you really believe is your path, and trust that when you put the hard work in and you're doing your due diligence, that you're rewarded. And so I'm one of those risk takers. Like I feel like my essence and way of operating is definitely entrepreneurial, like very like high risk, but high benefit. But it's always high risk for something positive, a way to affect the planet in a positive way. So that's kind of that piece. And of course, I still have all these loans to pay back. I was even thinking of like contacting NYU and being like, hey, like I heard it's wonderful that you've raised all that money. Like, is there any way to help those who have like over $200,000 in debt, you know, to see, you know, it doesn't hurt, right, to ask. And so, yeah, now it's much easier. It's like understanding, like there's so many coaches out there that really talk about different ways to give offerings, right? And also it's understanding that like charging a certain price is important also for the person who's coming to you. So it was having to go through this whole journey of like understanding things and how things work and being entrepreneurial. Like really, like, you know, I do many different things and even collaborating with different types of companies that I believe in and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm managing many different types of work that are all in alignment with supporting conscious living and healthy, happy living for myself and others. And so being that example. So yeah. And so that's my biggest advice to anyone is really to follow your heart over the money, because the money will come when you're doing what what you love and you're in alignment with what you're doing. Because like I said, money's energy. So if you're in alignment, then the money will come, the energy will come to you. You're giving, you'll receive. It's the laws of the universe.
Yeah, it's really cool that you can do that, because I would imagine there's a lot of people that might be in a similar position as you. They went through the school, they owe a couple $100,000, and then they're like the same as you, like this is good for like when you're in a bad car wreck. This is, you know, you want to go to the hospital. You don't want to go to, you know, the Reiki person after when you bones and stuff put back together. But they stick with it because of the money, and then they just and then they become that way. And so when you're finding out about like your grandmother and this the ancestry is from like in the jungles that you said Colombia, right?
Yeah.
And so that just being able to like live in that way. I don't know a lot about Colombia, but if you're in these like kind of like jungle places where there's all kinds of like dangerous things around, that level of awareness, and like knowing what can heal you and what can kill you, and was there, I guess, like, was it like, was there like a final or a sudden awakening? Like, was there like a defining moment where you went from, okay, now I know for sure, or was it just kind of like this gradual thing?
So my awakening was very gradual. I did have moments like, for example, you know, we could say you received a download. Like the first time I understood that I could heal with my hands, and I was working with light energy to do that. So just energy in general, like, you know, light is a form of energy. I was like, oh, wow, you know, and that came before knowing anything. And so wanting to know more, then that's how I went to then the Reiki path, right? And then I realized, okay, Reiki's a different energy because I can feel the nuances between them. And so then I always really opt more for what innately wanted to come through me, because as humans, we're channels. We can be channels for divine, loving energies that want to help humans. And so I started realizing there's these other energies that are working through me, right? It's not me that's doing it. I'm working with energy forms that want to help humans. And so having that whole journey and then meeting people that were also having that experience. And so it was like gradually along the way, I was picking up pieces. And then I also stumbled upon a community in Italy called Dominher. And they are also a community of people that are connected to helping humanity, raising the consciousness on the planet. And so I was like, okay, well, there's more people like me. And then they have a form of energy healing there that's known in the world like prana therapy. But the container of energy is I guess you can say, cultivated by them. So it's like a pure form of energy that we know where it comes from. Whereas like Reiki, you don't really know where that energy is coming from. So it's being really aware of what energies you're working with. And so then I also did that spiritual healer school, which I will be giving in California and maybe in New York too, and like an introductory course to that, because the prana therapy with Dominher is really great. And so this is actually, if people are interested in that, at the end I'll give my information, but I suggest that people contact me if they want to get into energy healing, but they don't really know what kind, etc. This kind of energy healing through Dominher is great for anyone who, even if you don't have this gift that has awakened, but it does awaken this aspect within you. And it's very clean. It's very hygienic in the sense of you don't take things on from people because we use certain tools. And so I kind of went, because I'm someone who is based in science, you know, as a medical doctor, I'm really scientific about the way I do my healing work, even when I work with crystals and I work with sound and all these different things. And I go about it in a very scientific way. And I do see like what things have effects on my patients or clients. And so I know that I can repeat certain things and know that it will have a similar outcome. And then also know that each healing experience is unique to the person because everyone's going through a different thing. So I personally believe that in the future, there'll be more tools available to measure energy healing. Right now, people don't understand the how, because technology for humanity right now is kind of not so advanced. Like we think we're really advanced, but not really, because there's things that are happening beyond what any tools are measuring. So in time, I think that the idea of energy healing will come first, and then you will go to the medical doctor, because our energy field is our future. You know, our blood is the present moment, and our bones and our tissues are the past. And so in order to live a happy life and create a life you love and really create a future that's in alignment with your heart, you have to be healing that through your breath, through how you're spending your time, what you're eating. Everything you're putting into your body is creating your future, is affecting your life. And so for me, this is medicine, like understanding just how to take care of ourselves, like day to day. And then all those pills and all that other stuff can come later. But it's even working with the plants and the stuff that nature has available to us. Like, why did we have to go and change it and isolate a part? You know, why can't we just use the plant from where it comes? Like the natural plant, take a bath in it, drink a tea of it, like eat it, you know? And so I think humans like to complicate things sometimes, whereas like this planet is so beautiful and provides us everything we need. And Western medicine, yeah, like did prolong life. And at the same time, it's so like, what's the quality of life? And we do look at like these Buddhist monks who are living a certain conscious lifestyle, and they're living much longer and better quality than people who are living till 100, but they're maybe not even living till 100, maybe like 80 something, but they're in a nursing home. Like, you know, what do we want, right? Do we want to just live longer? Or do we want to have like a greater quality of life?
Yeah. I like a lot of what you said there. That's really, there's a lot there to think about, just like what it is that we're doing and what we consume, and like go to like see like the vending machine, and it's all just like junk food stuff. It's all just junk food, and so there's it's like it's almost like easier to make unhealthy decisions, even when you go into like the more like the health food stores, like it seems like here's sugar, but it's organic, and here's like that kind of stuff, and it's really weird what we're presented with. I think it's really fascinating that, so you were talking about like the science and like the Reiki, we don't know where the energy is coming from, and this prana healing that you're more that you've kind of transitioned to, and the sound healing, and you're talking about like these like you approach it from a scientific way. Are you is there still things that like you don't really have a good scientific explanation for, but it just works? So you're just like, it doesn't really matter that, 'cause you talk about the technology for like measuring these things, because I've had different energetic experiences, maybe like Kundalini, or I can feel my microcosmic orbit. If you're familiar with the microcosmic orbit, I can feel that, and I can use that in well, I won't get into all that, but I can use it, and so I know it's true. I can feel it, and through the Taoist system, it's like here's the model, here's how it works, but it may not be good like Western science. So is there any like conflict between like what you're doing and what you're actually able to explain, and like your Western mind versus your like Eastern mind? Or
So for me, I feel more of, if I've had the experience, then it's true.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes against the Western model, right? The Western model is like, here's a study, here's a control group, where even that is flawed because it can't represent all of humanity in like 20 people or even 100. A lot of them are like white people, right? Whereas like the world is filled with all kinds of subspecies of humans, meaning like from the lands from which people came, like Asian, Latino, etc., right? So already these studies can't be extrapolated to all of humanity. So I already was seeing like the flaws in the studies. I'm like, okay, so now we're going to believe all of this just because one study said this. Like, so I already was I was skeptical of Western medicine, and like, so it's almost like I couldn't get brainwashed by it, you know? When it comes to the work that I do, there's so much I can't explain it. A lot of it is like miracles. Like, I'm not a religious person, but like you even think of like Jesus as this archetype who he was like healing people with his hands. Like, this is possible. Like, it's totally possible. I've seen it with my own eyes. Like, actually, as I'm talking to you, I'm currently in Colombia because there is a healer here that I'm connecting with, because he cured my aunt of Lyme disease using like prayer and like certain plants and baths. And
wow.
And I'm like, okay, I need to know this medicine. And then it's funny because I arrive here and he was like, yeah, you know, I probably need a month with her. But then he did certain tests for me and he's like, no, you don't need a month. You only need 5 days. And so it's like knowing that it is a logic that's being used. Like, I understand how the universe works and the energy. Everything's energy. So if you understand how energy works and like the symbiosis of all the elements that are on the planet, then this is how you can use like science, but using energy and plants and crystals and sound, because these are all different forms of energy to heal. So sometimes I think it's more of like healing on the quantum level too. Like, you know, there's like the mass particle is it the mass particle effect? The wave particle effect. It's like this idea that the way the observer of the experiment wishes to see this particle, this mass, the outcome happens based on what the experimenter wants to see. So it's showing you how like your thoughts create. So if I'm saying like, heal this person, like they will be healed. And they were even doing studies in China with this, where they were taking patients and they were telling them, okay, you're healed, you don't have any disease. And then they were doing studies and they showed that the whatever they had, the diseases were better, like they were curing. And so this is how the Aboriginals healed, the natives, like, so it's really going back to our roots. But in this way of like, it's not barbaric or it's not going backwards. It's rather like reclaiming the knowledge that's been lost or that's almost about to be lost, because it really is like, it's such a shame. Like I've spent, much time in South America, Central America, and the youth they don't want to inherit their family's things. They like want cell phones and they want foods that are in these bright wrappers, like you said, like the candies and the sodas, and they want to like dress like they just want to become westernized. And so the cultures are dying, and this is like a piece of humanity dying. So then you have people like me that I've been westernized. I went through the whole thing, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, all the gems are like back where we came from.
Yeah.
And so it's like feeling this responsibility also to like save this knowledge. And so you see like there's so many like books coming out of people who have spent time with natives and etc. And this is really where the wisdom is. Like this is where the information is. And it's all about, and the same principles that are used to heal someone, which is like using our thoughts. When I'm doing energy healing, I'm using my thoughts and directing them at different things I'm working on, whether it's clearing an energy that I'm feeling or whether it's activating a part of their being or et cetera, et cetera. That's the same principles used to create our life. Like, this is what I want. I want to like do this work and I want to live in this place and et cetera. It's the same principles. Like we are creator beings. And so this is where I'm like, I don't know how science can really measure this. I would say like I said, that wave particle effect is probably the closest thing. So it's like quantum physics is able to explain more of this stuff. So yeah, like have I been able to do an energy healing on a person and then all of their pain is gone? Yeah, sure. It happens all the time. And then in time, they go back to their thought patterns and their lifestyle and their habits, and then the pain returns. So what we are doing to ourselves is what is creating whatever dis-ease is within ourselves. So we change. That's why like it's about the lifestyle. It's about conscious living. It's about what we're eating. It's about who we spend our time with. It's about the house we live in. It's all of it, where we live, what we do for work. All of this affects our health.
Yeah, you're saying a lot of very, very interesting things. I would think that like some people that are maybe skeptical, I would think maybe a lot of your clients or patients, whatever you call them, I could see like where they might not start off with the like what some people call like the woo stuff, the energy healing, and they're starting off with like the Western medicine and it's not working. Then they find out about you, and then like, oh, you actually went through medical school and you're not doing that. You're doing something else. So you understand the science. You didn't just like read some new age book and like, oh, okay, now I'm this healer. You have like the real solid science in the background, and you found a better way this way. So are a lot of your clients or patients like they were skeptical, but they trust you because you have the like New York medical school background?
Yeah, so I do sometimes, in the times where I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe I have all this debt, then realizing the purpose, right? So the purpose, like I had to do that. I had to go through that path to then be able to be here. And one day, I'm still collecting the case studies, but one day I'll write a book called, actually I shouldn't share the title, but it will be about disease and energy and like everything I'm explaining in this more scientific way, and to really share it in a scientific way and show the studies of what was healed, etc. And I feel that, yes, like having that knowledge still is applicable when I work with people. And, I'm happy you're mentioning patient or client. I kind of have moved away from the word patient, because patient often implies like the person's sick. Mm. Normally you think of like a doctor-patient relationship, people, and this is a Western thing where people go to the doctor when they're sick. But really, I work with many people that are healthy, like totally healthy. They're just like maybe not happy, or even people who are living a great life and they want to up level to the next level, right? Like, so it's not just about like if you're sick or suffering, it's about if you want to enhance and like optimize and like live your best life and really live in alignment and like create anything you want. Like that too, I work with those kind of people. And then client also feels like, so I've been wondering, it's actually a conversation I've been having with people, like, what do I call the people that I work with, right? Mm-hmm. You can just call them people, right? And so I get the full range. I get people that are totally woo, and with them I can be more woo-woo, right? Like they understand if I start talking more specifically about certain energy forms or energies that I'm connecting with to work with them, right? And then there's people, like I had a session with someone 2 days ago, and she's like, I'm a total atheist, but she comes from like all of her family were like Holocaust survivors, etc. But maybe that's what caused her to be super atheist. So anytime I mentioned about the soul or past lives or anything, she was like, okay, that's not my thing. And so then it's also me working at the level of where the person's at, because the information's the information. I can just choose what words to use, and really meeting people where they're at. And so yeah, some people, and I was also on a Fox reality show once called Utopia. And I think there was where I opened a lot of people's minds to like what we're eating, and like just taking time to meditate and move our bodies can do like a world of good. And I still get fan mail from that, where people are like, ever since changing my diet and doing yoga, I've lost this many pounds. My sex life is great. Like I'm so happy, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, like maybe if I was just some chick doing yoga, like they'd be like, whatever. But then because I'm a medical doctor, I do think it allows people to open their minds. Like, wait, let me actually just hear what she has to say. Yeah. So yeah, it did give force to, or maybe a form of quote unquote power to the words that I speak, because maybe if I was just a regular woman that awakened to these gifts, they wouldn't have as much of an impact. So I'm grateful. I really am. I'm grateful I went through all of that schooling and all of that money to get this degree.
Yeah, I can see how that would be just kind of like makes sense. You see more of the whole. And I teach at a wilderness survival school, and I'm a strength and conditioning instructor, and we get into like other stuff too. But when I can kind of think like as esoteric as it gets, like I can believe all kinds of weird stuff, but I'm also like skeptical of it. So it's like Reiki, it's like, I don't know. It's like, not like I don't believe it, but there's like, sometimes I'm skeptical, or like, even like with my own experiences, okay, well, what is that really? And so like when I'm through the wilderness school that I work, I've met a lot of really cool people. I've been to like sweat lodges and several of those, and you were talking about like the states of consciousness, and like people going back to these patterns of thinking, and like what I don't know what my exact question is, but you might kind of like get what I'm getting at. So like the states of consciousness, like when you're in I don't know if you've been in a sweat lodge or like some kind of have you done those?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So and so to me it was like, okay, so that's a state of consciousness. So you're getting into this sweat lodge, and he's banging the drum, and he's singing in something in Lakota, and it's like this different thing. It's a lot different than being at the grocery store. It's a different state of consciousness. It's a whole different thing. And you're like, like praying for somebody, and you're kind of like, the way I think of it, you're kind of like because sometimes it really is unpleasant. It's hot, and I went to one a few weeks ago, and it sucked. I mean, it was not like some just pleasant experience hanging out with these cool people. It was pretty rough, but you do it anyway. And like and through the wilderness school, I also met a guy. His name's Greg Monzel. He's an herbalist, and he has all the science. He can break down the chemical name of why this herb is going to help you. He can talk about the chemicals and the Western science, but he can also like take a turn, and all of a sudden he's talking about like more shamanic stuff, more energy stuff, this really esoteric stuff. So he has that too. And I would, and so when you're talking, I can just imagine when you're like meeting these people, they're able to, like, because we learn a lot from our students, right? Our students are teaching us more than our school did, I think. And so when I'm working with clients that are like maybe more aggressive, and like they're ready to work out, let's do something difficult. Come on, what are you waiting for? They're like almost pushing me to. And then there's other ones that are like a little bit more timid. Maybe a kid has a developmental problem, and so he's like a little bit shy starting out with me at first, and then so they're able to like bring us, because I have like all these different parts of myself too. I have the skeptical person. I have like this mystical mind person. I have this like the yogi and the Western mind. I have the aggressive workout person and the like more sensitive flowy person. So are you able to like see like these like the different people that you're working with? I guess I don't know if I have an exact question, but like what's the, like when you're working with these different people, are there like kinds that you prefer? Are there kinds that are like a kind of a breath of fresh air when they come in and they are more open to the woo kind of stuff, or do you like it better when they come in with like what do you have a preference, I guess, of
I think for me, I like all the kinds, because it also allows me to go into different parts of myself, right? So I like all of them. But what I really love is when people are really ready to change, ready to transform, ready to heal, that they are done with the patterns and they're ready. And so that whatever quote unquote homework or assignments they're given, because that's part of what coaching and just going to a healer is in general. It's like, it's not only in that moment, you then take it and apply it to your life. So I love working with the people that are like the A students, the ones that are going to do the assignments, the ones that are going to put everything into practice, the ones that are going to change their lives, because it's ultimately up to each one of us. It's the actions we take, etc. So for me, I'm really a chameleon, and I think that that's part of being a healer, is because we're mirroring the person. Like in that moment, we have to be what they need, right? And it's putting myself, who I am, Dr. Nikki Starr, aside, and it's being whatever they need. And sometimes, it's funny because sometimes there's this personality that comes out in the coaching, and she's more like the tough love mom that's like, no, like no more, but then sometimes there's the one that cries for the person because they can't shed the tears. So I'm crying as they're sharing, and it's their tears that I'm crying, right? And so it's like being able to be all of it and everything and whatever is needed in the moment. So, I mean, I love this work because it's not predictable. You go in, and as an intuitive, like, I don't know anything what's going to happen. Some things start to come in before, and I know, okay, this is going to be serving for them, etc., as I start to connect to their energy fields. But in the moment, it's like, there's no script. Like, there's nothing to study. It's like integrating the knowledge and being it, and then in the moment, really. And so, like I said, it's really living, and it's living the moment, this work. And so, like, I can't imagine doing anything else, right? Like, dermatology was great. I loved it. I loved working with my hands and doing biopsies and stuff. But I wonder how much, like, office life I would have really loved, or how many stitches I would have loved to do. Whereas this is like, we're healing people's, like, ancestral stuff, or, the stuff of today, or the challenging relationship dynamics, et cetera, or even with couples. I also work with just human connection and helping couples have more love in their lives and more juiciness and like everything, because that's energy too. It's just understanding energy polarity. So really what I feel is like my specialty became energy in all its forms.
Yeah, it's really cool. You said something a second ago that it sparked something. I forget what that was now. But like one of the things that you're the script. So like one of the things that I'm kind of working on, like I don't know if you know who Jordan Peterson is, but he was a psychology professor, and now he's like kind of like travels around giving like talks on like 12 rules of life and like sit up straight with your shoulders back. But that it's not just that. That's a whole there's a whole chapter about that, of just kind of like how to get what you want out of life and live up to your potential and stuff. But you're talking about the script. Like one thing that I'm working on, you may have noticed, like when you were coming on the show, so I'm like looking at your Instagram, I'm looking at your website, but I don't write out just I don't think of it as like an interview where I'm going to write out 25 questions. I have them out, I have them all worded perfectly, because I don't know what you're going to say. So I know what I want to talk to you about, but I don't have every question articulated to make me sound brilliant, in case you haven't noticed. But so that you're talking like living in the moment, like you don't know what you're getting. And sometimes one of the reasons why I don't like have all the questions out, I know that, like the prana stuff and the medical doctor stuff. So I knew these things about you. So I didn't it's not like I didn't study you at all. But like part of it is just like being in the moment and being able to like really listen to you. So instead of like, okay, I have this next question ready whenever you get done talking about this one, is I'm really listening to you, because sometimes people will say something, they'll give like a hint of what they really want to talk about. So like while someone is, maybe a client is answering my question or answering a question or talking to me, they'll like drop a little hint and then they move on. And so when I'm done the podcast, you're my 50th episode. You're my 50th.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's cool to have you be the 50th one, especially with like all the stuff that you're talking about. But so I'm seeing like these hints, and people will do that in the podcast also. And because I'm trying to get like the story of like, who are you and why are you here and what are you all about, and like I want to know like your story. And so when people come to you, do you see that they're like, I want to come to you because I'm having this problem, and then after you talk to them for a little bit, they'll like drop a hint, or actually that's not why you're here. You're here for this.
Yeah.
Does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all the time, because a lot of that subconscious mind, like something's presenting consciously, but the cause is really subconscious. And this is what people with their healing things they want to avoid, like if there's certain patterns, etc. And so that's part of the work. So it's funny because then I do work with people. It's like, in everyday life, I don't give feedback unless it's really asked. That's something I had to learn the hard way. I used to like be like so open and sharing, and like, unless people are really asking you for your feedback, like in a setting of where they're paying for your services, because it's an energy exchange, right? That's what payment is. There's no need to share because people may not be receptive. But in that space, everything's on the table. So if someone like speaks a certain way, that comes into the conversation too. Like language is a part of our sessions. Like everything is a part of our session. Or even if they're like, things are great. And I'm like, okay, great. So if things are great, like what's going on that's not great? Like, and it's really just getting to the heart of it, and because like it's okay if we go into the uncomfortable stuff. That's the point. Like, let's go into the uncomfortable stuff. Like, I'm the one person they can tell everything to, because it's confidential, right? There's still the doctor-patient confidentiality. I don't know anyone in their life, and I'm totally unbiased because I'm not involved in any of the dynamics of their life. There's no secondary gain for me. Whereas if you go to a friend and you say something, or your family member, they have all of their biases. So it's really this beautiful, safe container that they can do the great work they're here to do so that they can be the best they came here to be. So yeah, it's really an honor and a gift to be able to share so intimately with someone in this space, you know, and Skype sessions are just as powerful as in person. They generally look differently. Like, Skype sessions are definitely more of the talk time. Of course, there's talking in the in-person, and of course I do energy in Skype, but it happens in a different way. And then, you know, in person, there's other things. And, you know, when people are on the table or in certain meditations where energy is being exchanged on Skype, both Skype and in person, things are coming that could be totally strange. And I'm like, you know, this is coming through, and asking them about that, you know, and it's okay. And the honest sharing that happens. And a lot of tears are shed. And sometimes it's funny too. You know, I do my best to make it humoristic, because like, this is kind of a comedy that we're in. And so if we can see it in a lighter light, it helps to heal through it as well.
Yeah, you said like the safe container, you don't know people. I used to drive a cab. I drove a cab for about 7 years, and a lot of what I did was medical transportation. And so I would get to know these some of these people. That I'm taking them to their cancer treatments every week. I'm taking them to their you know, maybe their kid goes to like Riley Hospital, which is a pretty famous hospital. Kids from all over the world go there. And it's like people would sometimes tell me, I mean, there were times when I was the first person somebody told. They just found out they had cancer. I picked them up from the hospital, and they tell me that, and they have, and people would like be crying about something, men and women, and people have like all these, some like the comedies, like there was a comedy, and then like the tragedy, like classical literature and stuff. But there's like, people have like all these things going on, and it was like in the cab, a lot of times most people would sit like in the back and on the passenger side, so all they see is my ear. They can't even really see my mouth. So it's like, and I'm this person that doesn't know I'm not going to be gossiping to their friends. I'm not going to be spreading these things. So it was really amazing sometimes what people would tell me. And like, cab driver doesn't seem like this wonderful high profile job to like brag about and stuff, and like go to parties. Yeah, I'm a cab driver. But it was like one of those things. It's like I was supposed to do that for that time. I didn't plan on doing it that long, but the people I met, the experiences I had, it was really interesting. And I think part of that is what maybe got me into podcasting, because people want to tell their story, and people they just need someone to listen to like what is really going on. So it's not like, hi, how are you? Fine. And then no, it's like, what's really going on? And so when you're doing these like Skype sessions or whatever, like, how much of it do you think is people just being able to have that person to talk to that's not going to gossip, they're not going to be judging, and how much of that do you think has an effect on their results?
So much. And you know, it's funny because one of my favorite healers, he often said, like, the greatest gift that you actually give people is that they have a healer that loves them. And that alone is like the most healing thing they could ever receive. You know, all of the people I work with, I think of them throughout the days. Like, it's not just that one moment we had the session. So now they have someone's love and attention on them, like fully unconditional love, because like I said, for me, it doesn't matter. And so that alone offers healing, right? And so when it comes to like what you're saying, I also like to call it talk therapy. right? That's why the Skype sessions are just as powerful as in person, because it's a moment to just be seen and heard. And that for this time, like, someone is giving you their undivided attention. Even more than the cab, right? Because they're just like giving it, and you can be listening or not. But of course, there's something in your energy field that makes people comfortable to tell you these things. And that's why they did, right? Because I don't think that most people tell all the cab drivers in the world things, right? And so there is something within your field that was bringing this to you, right? And so the same for the sessions. It's like, people do want to be heard. They do. And when they feel there's someone they feel comfortable enough. Like, I've also worked with men that have many forms of addictions that are very shameful, and so knowing that, and for some reason, something in my field makes them feel like they can tell me this thing that could be so embarrassing, but here we are talking about it and how to move through it, and providing them with resources and different things and ways of seeing it in another way. And so, like, I'm so grateful, like, because even in medicine, I saw the craziest things, right? Like, even seeing like the private parts, right? But not always in the most beautiful way, right? Like, whether it's through, even though to me, it's beautiful when a woman's giving birth, but also times where there's trauma and pain there for both a man and a woman. And then also seeing death. Like, I've seen so much, I've seen it all. So for me, there's really nothing that shocks me. And I think that people can feel that, like, they really can feel it. They can tell me anything. And then that's like a sigh of relief of, like, just getting it off your chest is like releasing it from your body. And so that alone, yes, just talking to someone is healing in and of itself.
You mentioned the sound therapy. Are you doing that also? Because I noticed, like, when you're moving your arms, it sounds like you have like bracelets on that are, it almost sounds like maracas or something like that.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's actually, I'm not even wearing anything. So it's funny. I thought I was wearing my necklace, but I'm not even. So I'm not even.
I hear something like.
Yeah, no, I'm not wearing anything today. Normally I do, actually. So I was thinking, like, oh yeah, it's this, but I'm not wearing my necklace either. So that's interesting. There's nothing.
That's really weird, because it sounds like there's like some kind of like bracelets or something, like shaking around.
That's so funny. Normally I am wearing bracelets and a necklace, and so some of them are for protection. But what's interesting is right now in this moment, I am wearing no jewelry, nothing.
Huh.
So maybe we're just meant to talk about it. So I do sound healing, and I do it in the form through my voice. And I sing different frequencies and pitch, and even light language, which sounds like different languages that are not English or other ones. A lot of them are ancient languages or from other spaces. And I do use a sound bowl. And sometimes I do use certain kinds of beads or certain kinds of shakers, etc., depending on what I'm doing. So sound is definitely a big part of the healing process. And people often feel like just from the sound alone, like it brings them to another space. Because sound is like a portal. So you really can shift someone's frequency with sound.
Yeah, I have a singing bowl, and I play guitar, and there is just something about the you said a portal. I like that way that sounds. My favorite musician currently is Estes Tona. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Tonne. He's from Ukraine, but he plays like flamenco style Spanish kinds of guitar. But he's just. Have you heard of him?
Oh no, I should check him out. If you can definitely let me know. Maybe send me an email or a message just with the spelling, because I won't remember it in this moment.
Yeah,
I'd love to check him out.
yeah, he's but he has songs that are over an hour long, and it's just him playing guitar. But he just like
he's in a portal somewhere.
Yeah, he's just really amazing guitar player, and I've been looking for him to be in concert in the States for a couple of years since I discovered him, and I'm going to see him in Chicago in December. And but you're talking about the portal, so that's kind of like what it reminded me of, like this of him, and like Pink Floyd's my all-time favorite band, and it was like this, as soon as they start playing, it's like I'm just somewhere else. And then like when he plays, it's just because I play like some Spanish classical kinds of stuff, but he's like as good as it
Next level. Yeah. Because I also feel like the way you're describing it really sounds like he doesn't have the script. He's literally going with his heart and whatever energies are flowing through him.
Yeah.
And this is really like where true masterpiece happens in any art form. And everything is art. Anything we create and do is art, right? Like life is art. And so it sounds like he's really in touch with some energy bigger than him.
Yeah, he is just an amazing player. So it reminded me of like when you were, whatever that is, that shaking I heard, it's weird, but it almost reminded me of sometimes like when the Native Americans would tell a story, you got one guy banging on a drum, and then you have the storyteller. And so it's kind of like this thing going on. That's kind of what it reminded me of. I don't know why I hear like shaking, but when you're talking, it's like there's almost like this beat kind of thing going with it. That's really interesting.
Maybe that's how you're perceiving energy that's coming through, right? Because we all perceive energy in different ways. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's clairaudience. That's what clairaudience is when you hear things. And then there's clairvoyance when you see things. And so that happens like oftentimes, always in the sessions, like people have visions of different things or hear things or et cetera that aren't there. But they're there, but they're not there in this like 3D realm, right? Because there's so many layers and levels of this. It's creating this experience we're living. And our five senses are they're limited. And they're limited because our body can only contain so much before like we could have like a nervous breakdown, because we are like limited in this physical body, and our body can only do so much. So we do have to have filters, and that's what our senses do. Our senses filter the outside world so that we don't have a nervous breakdown. So yeah.
A lot of information out there to leave out so we can get through and not be overwhelmed. We've been going for about an hour here, so I could talk to you forever about this stuff, but we can. Is there something else you're wanting? I'm not in any hurry, but is there something else you're wanting to get into, and like how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'd love to share how people can get a hold of me. As you found me on Instagram, you can follow me on Instagram. I share a lot of great just words and inspirations, and it's all about positivity and just living life to the fullest, and also healing tips and such. And that's at Dr. Nikki Starr, DrNikkistarr. And my website is the same, drnikkistarr.com. And then you can email me at nikkistarr@drnikkistarr.com. And so the spelling is the same, 2 I's, 2 K's, 2 R's. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I guess actually we can also leave a link that I'll leave a link that if you click on it, you can get a free meditation as well that I guided some time ago, but I still share it. And I will have a meditation album coming out soon that is definitely a lot of energy and such. And so I look forward to sharing that when that comes. And I offer different types of online courses as well as online sessions. So wherever you are in the world, you can still connect with me and have an experience. And so thank you so much, Ryan, for this time together. And thank you for this great work you're doing and sharing different voices and conscious living and consciousness and health and wellness. And thank you, because our planet, humanity needs this at this time. So thank you for sharing this great light and love.
Yeah, thanks for being on. It was very interesting. I'd like to have you on again for sure. I feel like I could talk to you all day about this stuff. There's so much to dig into. And I think that, especially having like kind of, you kind of speak both languages, the Western medicine and the more the, I guess like the real traditional medicine, energy healing, that you have kind of a unique perspective on it, more complete. And so I would, be interested to like look into more into what you're doing. And it's very, very cool to have you on. And anything else you want to leave us with? Words of
words of wisdom. I guess I feel like the summation of this, what we shared, is, really to follow your heart and live in alignment with your truth, and not to worry about all that other stuff. That when you're in alignment, everything comes: the money, the happiness, the joy, the health, and really taking action. You know what's good and what's not good for you, right? You know whether it's the vending machine stuff or the natural fruits and vegetables. And so today, may you be inspired to do something that's in alignment for your health and your happiness, and make a choice that really makes your heart happy and your body happy. And so, I leave you with that, and go follow me at Dr. Nikki Starr on Instagram so we can stay in touch. And it was beautiful to be here. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks again. I will stop the recording. I'll talk to you for a second after I stop it.